the Twins are in a position to potentially make history. On a weak division, they are currently the ones with the lead. They're winning the AL Central. Despite this, they have 41 wins and 42 losses. It's true that MLB teams have made the playoffs on a losing record. Here's the thing though, they always have happened in shortened seasons. 1981 is an example when the Montreal Expos were able to make the postseason with 50 wins and 53 losses. How is that possible? Because after a strike, the MLB was forced to divide the season into two, and so the Expos were able to win the second half and make the playoffs. Several teams like the Cardinals and Reds, who won the season overall, were actually kicked out of the playoffs, because of that. The Cardinals and the Reds were actually kicked off the playoffs because of that. Cardinals would win the World Series next year, but the Reds would take a while for them to get back into playoff action. So that's a good example. COVID shortened season 2020, another example of a losing record team making the playoffs. What was it? It was the Houston Astros, who had 29 wins and 31 losses. But the MLB was actually doing a system in which 8 out of 15 teams in each league would make the playoffs. And because the Astros achieved second place in the AL West, they were able to make the playoffs as the number 6 seed. I think the Milwaukee Brewers also made the playoffs on a 29 and 31 record. But what makes the Astros even more unusual is how they were able to advance it all the way to the Championship Series and be one win away from making it to the World Series on a losing record, which would have been a rematch against the LA Dodgers. So we nearly saw a 2017 World Series repeat in 2020. I got the confused with 2022 because 2022 was another year in which we got close to seeing a 2017 World Series rematch. Well, not really, but if you were to have asked people from early October, who they thought was going to make it to the World Series, it would be Astros and Dodgers. 2021, another year that we got close to a rematch occurring. There have been many, many opportunities. 2018, another year where we got really close to this kind of a rematch occurring between the Astros and Dodgers. So, it just really shows that point. But generally, it hasn't happened. It's actually never happened in a full season. The 2005 San Diego Padres were the closest. They finished first in the NL West with 82 wins and 80 losses to their name, yet they were able to still make the playoffs. And they got eliminated immediately in the divisional round, which at the time was the first round. However, there have been some other really poor teams who have actually made it to the World Series. In 1973, the New York Mets finished atop a very weak NL East, and they only had 82 wins and 79 losses. That's really amazing that they made the playoffs, because back then there were only 4 divisions. And they were able to advance to the World Series, where they lost against the Athletics. 2006, the Cardinals were able to win the World Series atop a weak NL Central. They were able to make a Cinderella run throughout the playoffs, despite only achieving 83 wins and 78 losses. In these cases, several teams have actually done better than them and have still missed out on the playoffs. Winning the division is powerful because it grants you an immediate trip to the postseason. And initially, it was always where you could even skip the wild card round. And now they got rid of it. So you start playing a wild card round. And that's actually where I think the Minnesota Twins will run into some trouble. But the question is, can the Twins do it? The thing is that we're in a position in baseball where we are halfway done with the season. Yes, things are going to change from where we are right now, but I think the general trend remains consistent. Like, it would take a lot for the Baltimore Orioles at this point to not make the playoffs. Not saying it can't happen, I'm just saying that the Orioles have to do a big choke job in order for them to not make their first playoff appearance since 2016. The same applies to the Texas Rangers. Diamondbacks are in a good position to make their first postseason since 2017. At the beginning of the season when the Pirates were the number 1 seed, it was like, yeah, they could choke. And the Pirates did choke. And now we don't think the Pirates are going to make the playoffs, although they are back to being ahead of the Cubs after the Cubs dropped 4 straight, though they won last night. So that's the kind of thing that you could see. But here's the other thing. Atop a weak AL Central, several things could happen. Another team could probably pretty easily slide off of them. There's also the matter of .500. So it's possible that a team that's not the Twins wins the division on a .500 record. Of course, they'll be the only team representing the AL Central to make it to the playoffs. That's pretty much obvious at this point that there will not be any wild card contenders from the AL Central. Could be Rangers, Astros, depending on which one wins the division. The other one's probably going to be wild card. Orioles and Yankees seem likely. I guess the Los Angeles Angels do have a chance to make their first playoff since 2014. Not sure how likely that is to happen, but it's a possibility. So, again, a really good position for a lot of teams to make it in, and they're also starting to gain control of their own destinies. In control of their own destiny basically means that they can just win and be in and just play they don't do anything spectacular. You don't hear about controlling your own destiny very often, and it's more so a thing in football. Reason why is because in baseball, a lot of times it just doesn't come down to the final game. You might have lost control of your own destiny, that's true, but a lot of times, that's not really a last day kind of thing. So, what you gotta understand about about all this is that these teams are really just in good positions, and I'm not saying they can't blow it because they obviously can, but they're in good positions, and we're probably going to see only a few changes to the seasonal standings. Now, I'm not saying that every team is in the playoff spot now is going to make the playoffs. That's probably not going to happen, but what I am saying is that we might see new faces into the playoffs, and I think that the .500 thing is actually really interesting because pretty much 2 things can blow it. First of all, it might not be the Twins, it might be another team. But second of all, a team could probably pretty easily actually make it to .500. A team could probably pretty easily get to that .500 mark or greater. Because if it's 81 and 81, they finish at .500 but not below .500. The Twins can only max out at 80 wins. If they continue at this pace, they're going to finish at, I believe, 80 and 82. That is a losing record. They've lost more games than they won, and they'd still be able to achieve the number 3 seed. And I think that would, again, be a very interesting case for the Minnesota Twins. Something that would be remembered forever. Similar to the 2010 Seahawks. Now, my other point of wonderment is, can the Twins actually make it somewhere in the postseason? Because they've lost 19 straight postseason games. They made it to the ALCS in 2002, but 2004 in the ALDS was their last time even getting a win in the postseason, and they lost the series. But since then, they've been swept every single time they made it to the postseason. Every single time since 2004. So that's 19 consecutive postseason losses. That's embarrassing. So I foresee that if they make the playoffs, the streak is going to extend to 21. They're probably going to get swept by whoever the 6th seed is. It could be the Rangers. It could be the Yankees. It could even be the Angels. Maybe the Astros don't win the division and they get the 6th seed. There's a lot of teams who it could be. If it's the Astros, the Twins are done for. If it's the Yankees, the Twins are pretty much done for. Against the Angels, they probably would have a chance if they're playing the Angels to possibly get their first postseason win. But even then, will they be able to advance to the divisional round? I don't know. And if they do advance, they have to go up against a 2 seed. That could very well be the Astros. And even against the Rangers, I still think that the Rangers would be able to win. I think that even if they make it out of the wild card, they're still in very sketchy territory for making it to the first championship series since 2002. I don't think they could do it. I honestly don't. I don't see a good pathway for the Minnesota Twins to make it anywhere in the postseason, but I'll give their chance of making it out of the wild card round about 25%, which is probably extremely generous. It probably should be closer to 5% than 25%. But can the Twins make it out of the divisional round? I'd be exceptionally surprised if they can make it out, because again, it's just very sketchy territory for the Minnesota Twins at this point. But I do think that there's a good chance they can make it in on a .500 record and set MLB history for that. And maybe they will be able to upset the series. I mean, look at how the 2010 Seahawks were able to upset the New Orleans Saints in the Beastquake game. I mean, that was, pretty anomalous. So, again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would take a lot. Losing like a team typically, even if they have better seeds and home field advantage, they tend to just do worse.